Greetings, fellow RotoBallers. It is time. It is week 11, so let's get our starts and sits of the week. First, Dave, I'm going to start with my quarterback start of the week. And Dave, take flight on flight JF1 versus a Falcons defense that has allowed 7 different quarterbacks to post at least 17 plus fantasy points. And Dave, right now with JF1, we're flying at an altitude of 10,000 fantasy points because he is averaging 111 rushing yards a game over his last 5 played. 14 total touchdowns in that span. We're handing out complimentary designed runs all week long. Start them up against the Falcons.
I love it, Joey. Now, coming off 2 strong games, you may be tempted to start this next quarterback during a tough bye week, folks, but Halloween is long gone. You want to sit the mascara man, Derek Carr. He's taking on the worst, and I say the worst matchup for opposing quarterbacks, not to mention the last time these two met just 6 weeks ago. Carr was only able to muster up 188 pass yards with no tutties, and that was a home game, okay? Carr, he's a sit for me.
Let's move over to our tight end starts of the week. Now, look, people are pretty much driving Kyle Pitts to the bus station and then just peeling out of the parking lot and driving away. He's getting dropped. Dallas Goedert is hurt. So what are you going to do? Slim pickings. Dalton Schultz versus the Minnesota Vikings. It's a plus matchup. The Vikings are giving up the eighth most fantasy points to tight ends this season. They've allowed 6 touchdowns to tight ends over their last 7 games. And also, Dalton Schultz, since Dak Prescott is back, 17 receptions, 177 receiving yards. Look, that's not a lot, but it's enough targets for me. Start him up against the Vikings.
And we talked about Carr having the worst possible matchup for quarterbacks. Well, this guy's got the worst matchup for tight ends, Joey. It's Tyler Higbee. Yeah, he's coming off 8 targets, and yeah, Kupp is out, which could lead to more targets over the middle of the field. But New Orleans has been stiff, and I mean very stiff, Joe, over the middle of the field. Over their last 5 games, they have not allowed a tight end to surpass 36 yards, and no tight end has surpassed 50 yards on them all season long. Sit Higbee. Now we move on to something way more fun, wide receivers, where once again, we're telling you to start both Bengals wide receivers. You're going to fire up T. Higgins, and we love the matchup for Tyler Boyd because they're taking on a Pittsburgh secondary that's been getting eaten up by wide receiver cores. The Bills, the Dolphins, the Bucks all had their way with them. So for an extra week to prepare, I think the Bengals are going to be hungry to avenge that season opener loss, Joey, that they had against the Steelers. I say start them if you got them.
That's a great pick, Dave. Let's move over to a wide receiver sits in week 11. Now, this guy just scored a touchdown last week, and look, that's going to get you itching to maybe put him in the lineup. But look, he has 6 games already this season of 40 or fewer receiving yards, and now he's going to go up against a Colts defense that's allowing the second fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. Only 3 touchdowns allowed since week 2. Devontae Smith, look, start A.J. Brown, but Devontae Smith, not a great play this week in week 11.
Joey, let's talk about running backs. A guy making his debut on this segment. So excited to talk about this guy. He was shot twice, okay? And now he's dropping 14 fantasy points on the Eagles defense.
God,
Brian Robinson Jr., we salute you, my man. You're a start for us this week. A lot of great running backs on bye. It's going to be hard to find a dude who can get you 26 carries, especially against a Houston defense that's giving up checks the most fantasy points to running backs. Look at that combo. I think the Commanders can win this game, Joey, and I think they can control it with Brian Robinson.
And let's go to our running back sit of the week. Now, he's going up against the defense, the 49ers, that's allowing the fewest fantasy points to running backs this year. Only 3 total touchdowns. Not a single running back has posted more than 59 rushing yards against them. Look, you just can't start a running back against the 49ers right now. So who is it in door number 2 this week? It's James Conner. He's only averaging 3.8 rushing yards a game, or rushing yards per carry, excuse me. They are thin at running back. You think they might see some volume, but James Conner hasn't even posted 100 total yards in a game yet this season. Going up against the 49ers, he's going to need a touchdown or 2. Not going to work. Sit James Conner. Now, everyone, take a deep breath, load up, because here comes our 60-second recap of the Week 11 starts and sits. Here it goes. Here's your starts and sits for Week 11. JF1, take flight, my friends, against the Falcons. He is a huge green light matchup and an easy QB1. Dalton Schultz, it's slim pickings, but he's getting the targets right now. Plus matchup against the Vikings, do it. Now coming up at wide receiver, they torched him in Week 1. They're going to torch him again this week. Start all Bengals wide receivers, even Tyler Boyd, this week against the Steelers. And finally, Brian Robinson getting the carries in the backfield, getting it done with the plus matchup. Start Brian Robinson.
And you're going to also sit these 4 players who all happen to have the worst matchups for their given positions. Derek Carr is taking on the number 1 Broncos pass defense. Tyler Higbee taking on the New Orleans Saints, who have been lights out versus the tight end. And on the wide receiver front, Devonta Smith, he's been up and down all year long. This is going to be a down. He's facing the toughest matchup for opposing wide receivers, the Colts. And finally, James Conner taking on the 49ers, who haven't allowed who have the least rushing yards and fewest yards per carry this year. Like, subscribe, go in that league. Bam.
JF1.
JF1.